Hello everyone for watching my channel. In previous video I explained how to create a page or two pages, how to put text or images, something like that. Was a static website. The content does not change. On the other hand, dynamic website is a collection of dynamic web pages. Dynamic web pages, the content is changing dynamically. For example, e-commerce, blogs, uh, uh, or dynamic website. In a static website, I explained in the previous slide, information and content uh, is not changing and it is fixed. For example, uh, we can create it in the previous video some text or we put images. For example, the small business, they can use a static website. They can introduce their business. We have a server and client browser. Dynamic website, it displays different content each time a user visits, for example, blogs and e-commerce sites or any website that is regularly updated. In picture, you can see server, database, and client. And database is very important when we created a dynamic website. When a user alter or update the content of a database, the content of the website is updated. And database is very important when we created a dynamic website. Before we are learning how to create a dynamic website, we have to know about the database. Database is starting with SQL. SQL stands for Structured Query Language and is a standard language for storing, manipulating, and retrieving data in different databases. In this tutorial, I want to show and explain about the MySQL database. How to use SQL in MySQL. It is a specific implementation of this standard. Uh, what's the relational database management system? The data in relational database management system is stored in database objects called tables. We have many databases such as MySQL, Oracle, SQL Server, but in this tutorial I want to explain about the MySQL. A relational database refers to a database that stores data in a structured format. A structured format means using rows and columns. Every table is broken up into smaller entities called fields. A field is a column in a table. The columns in a table that contain all information associated with a specific field. And a record, also called a row. For example, in the next slide, I want to explain what's the row or what's the column. For example, for column, we have a employee ID, name, phone, address, something like that. And for record or row, we have a, for example, name is Sarah or whatever, or ID 1, 2, 3. It's a unique for every table. And also, I explained in the previous slide, SQL or structured query language is a language used to communicate with the data stored in a relational database management system. MySQL is one of the relational database management system. MySQL is open source SQL database and mostly used for web application development such as Servlet or PHP and .NET. The main reason the most commonly used MySQLs are that it is easy and simple and inexpensive. In this tutorial, I want to explain about the MySQL. In database, most often contain one or more tables. We have one example. We have two tables. First, login. Second, employees. We have one table here. Name of table is employees. And in this table, we have two records, one for each employee. We have a two employee, one employee, two employee. For each employee, we have a record. Because we have two employees, we created two records and we have 5 columns. First, employee ID, second, employee name, address, 4 salary, and 5 font, depend on what we want and what company wants to create the table, depend on we created the records and the columns. As I mentioned before, MySQL is a relational database management system. Use SQL to access the data in tables. I listed here some of the most important SQL commands. First, we need to create a database, create a new database. Afterward, we create a database, we create a table, we use that SQL command, create a new table. After that, we can fetch the data, we use the select, we change, we can use the update, or delete, we can remove row from the table, insert into, we can insert new data into a database, and alter database, modify a database, add columns to a table in a database. In this slide, I want to show how to create database. We use the command create. After that, this syntax, database, and database name, whatever name we want. For example, in this specific example, I use IT department. After we create a database, we need to create table. Table includes of rows and columns. Create table, we use this syntax. Create table, table name. We have a table name, for example, employee. So the first column, second, and primary key. Primary key is a unique, and we don't have a duplicate data. As I mentioned before, we create table employees. After that, employee ID is a first column, is a primary key. Here I write employee ID is a primary key. The second column is a name. Third address for salary and phone. The type of our column is important. For example, employee ID is an integer such as 1, 2, 3, 4. Name is a varchar, length is a 20. Varchar is a string, for example, what a Solmos or Sarah. Address is a varchar, is a string, same as we have a letter or numbers. And salary is a decimal, for example, 200.2. Phone integer, and employee ID is a auto increment and automatically is added, for example 1, 2, 3, 4, and is a primary key. We don't have a duplicate data or information. After I create database, database name, use database name, change the kind of the database. After that, I use that command, create table, employees, and the column name is employee ID, integer and not null. We have to input information, and the result is here. We create a table in the database, and we got this message. We successfully created queries. Okay. Also, we can use this command, describe the employees, the name of the table, and we can see here. As I mentioned in previous slide, we can use describe command, and it shows us the what table we want. For example, here we want employees, and show the tables. We had a employee ID, name, that was a column's name, and type here, and null. It means we have to put some information. Primary key, that means unique. We don't have a duplicate data or information in the ID, and automatically is increased.